In the previous lesson, we have seen the theory and understood what is cross-page posting. In the current lesson, we will achieve cross-page posting by demonstrating it through code. So for that, we need a website, and in the website we will add a web page. In fact, two pages are required. We'll name the first page as page1.aspx and the second page as page2.aspx, and we'll add some controls to the page1.aspx as well as to page2.aspx. So let us start. So to create a website, go to File, New, Website, select Visual C#, select ASP.NET Empty Website, select the location as HTTP, give a name to the website. We'll call this as Cross Page Demo. Click OK. So we have an empty website. Now we'll add two pages here. Open Solution Explorer. If it is not already open, go to View, select Solution Explorer, right click on the URL node, select Add, select Web Form, give a name here, page 1. So this will be our page1.aspx. Click OK. So we have page1.aspx in the project. Now right click on URL node to add one more web page. Select Add, again Web Form. Call this as page2.aspx. Don't give any extension, it will be automatically added. Click OK. So now we have two web forms, page1.aspx and page2.aspx. Let us close the source mode here. Now let us go to page1.aspx, so that there is no confusion here. So we have only page1.aspx opened here. We are in source mode. Go to design mode, and we can go to source mode here, and this is split mode. Let us be in the source mode, or else we can go to design mode here. To add controls, open toolbox from view menu. So these are our toolbox. So here we will need a text box and two buttons and one label control. We will also add an header to differentiate whether it is a first page or second page. So for that, we'll go to source mode, we'll add a header. So we'll call this as page 1. Now we'll go to design mode. So this is our page 1. So in page 1, we will add a text box, two buttons and one label. So where is text box? So here we have a text box. Double click this. Now we'll add two buttons, button 1, button 2. We need a label. So this is a label. So we'll organize them properly. So select the text box, go to Format, set position absolute, drag this text box, put it somewhere. Now select button, select Format, select set position absolute. Now drag this button, put it somewhere here. Now select another button, Format, set position absolute. Put this button beside the first button. Now select label, set format, set position absolute. Drag this button label, put it below the text box. So these are our controls. So first of all, we'll give an ID to the buttons. Here let us select the text box. The ID of the text box is, see here, open properties. Here we have the text box ID as button 1. Text box 1. This is the ID of the text box. Now select button. So the ID of the button is button 1 and this is button 2. So we'll name them properly. So select button. We'll call this as just submit. or submit. Just submit. Okay. Now we'll also change the text property. So we'll call this as just submit. Okay. Now select button 2, drag it little bit. Now open properties here. So the ID of the button 2 is default is button 2. We'll call this as cross page post back. Okay. Submit. So we are giving the ID as cross page post back submit. We'll also change the text value for button 2. We'll call this as cross page post back submit. So the first button will just submit to itself, whereas this will submit the page to another page. And this is our label here. So the ID of the label is label 1. Okay. And the ID of the text box is text box 1. So we have not changed the ID of text box 1 and label. We have only changed the ID of 2 buttons, and also we have changed the text properties of these 2 buttons. Now when we click the button, by default the postback will take place. So for that we need to add in page 1, we will add an event handler for the first button. Here the name of the event is click. In page 1 we will add an event handler for the button, so that when the button is clicked, the function will be executed, and within that function will retrieve the value of the text box through code and assign it to the label. So that is all. We'll be doing it in page 1. So here for the button we have an event called click. So when you double click that button, the code behind file, it will automatically add an event handler for that click event of the button. So when the button is clicked, this function will be invoked. Now here what we are doing is, so the ID of the label is label 1, and we have to access the text property of the label and assign it the value from the text box. So the ID of the text box is text box 1, and text box also has a property called text. Using that property we can retrieve the value of the text box and assign it to the label. So we did not change the IDs of the text box and the label. We are using the default IDs. Okay. Now save it. Go to the design mode. Now try to run this. So this is our page. So this is our page 1. Here we have a text box. This is the first button and this is the second button, and this is the label. Now here we will enter some value, some hello world. Click the first button, title just submit. Now when you click the button, the default behavior of the button is to cause a postback. So when the postback happens, the page will submit the form contents to the server. On the server we have the page object for the current page, and this page object will receive these values, and within the page object there is a event handler called button click. That method will be invoked. Before that method is invoked, page load method will be invoked. After that the button click event will be invoked. Then within that button click event handler we are retrieving the value of the text box and assigning it to the label. Now click this button. So here we have displayed the contents of the text box in the label. Here the button 1 title just submit is posting to itself, that is submitting the form contents to itself. Now for button 2, which is titled cross page postback submit, we will not do the same thing. What we'll do is we'll make this button post the form contents, that is the contents of the text box, to a second page titled page1.aspx. So what we'll do is we'll minimize the browser or close the browser here. Now first we'll go to page 1. We will add a header. So we'll call this as page 2. Now here we can drag controls by going to the design mode and opening the toolbox, or else we can go to source mode and add the controls by typing the code. So all that is required is we need a label here. So I'll give an ID to the label, that is label 1 or just label 1. Now we'll call this as runnet equal to server. Every ASP.NET controls needs to have runnet equal to server. Okay. Now we'll go to design mode. So here we have the label. Now go to format, select set position absolute. Now drag this label somewhere here. So all that is required is a label in the page 2. Now we need to go to page 1 and we'll ask the button, the second button titled cross page postback submit, to post the form contents to the second page. Button is in the page 1 and button in the page 1 will post the form contents to page 2 and will display that content in the label. The content will come from the text box in the first page. Now for that, in the first page we'll go to source mode, and this is the second button titled cross page postback submit, and there is a property here called postback URL. Now IntelliSense has popped up. From the IntelliSense select page 2 because we need to post the page contents to page 2 from page 1. Now save this. Now go to page 2. Now press F7 to go to code behind file. Now when the page is loaded, and the page will be loaded when you click the button in the first page, that will make a cross page postback and the second page will be loaded. So when the second page is loaded, page load event will be invoked, and here what we'll do is we'll declare a text box. We'll call this as TB. This is just a variable here. Initially it is null. Now we'll assign a value to this variable by using previous page property of the page class, which contains a find control method. This method takes the ID of the control which we want to retrieve. The control here is text box. This text box is existing on the page 1. So what is the ID of the text box? The ID of the text box is text box 1. So go to page 2 code main file. Now type the ID of the text box. So this will return the text box for us. Now try to typecast it text box. Okay, save this. Now we have retrieved the text box from the first page and assign it to the text box variable. Now in the second page we have a label called label 1, and it also has a text property. Now to that label we will assign the value from the text box. Now save it. Now here we have taken the page names as page 1 and page 2. So right click on page 1, select set it as startup page, so that the page 1 will be executed by default. Now go to debug, start without debugging. So we'll type something here, hello world, So again we'll start with the first button. So when you click this button, just submit, it will submit it to itself, and we have hello world from the text box. Now when I select the second button and click the button, this button will cause a cross page post back and submit it to the page 2. So the page 2 will be open. Right now we are in page 1, and in page 2 we'll get the contents of the text box. Click this button now. So here we have page 2. This is also page 2 here. See here, page 2, and here we have the text from the text box of the first page. So this is how we can do a cross page post back and retrieve the values of the first page in the second page. There is also another way of accessing the controls. This is through properties. So we'll close the browser here. Now go to the first page. So this is our first page, source mode. Now declare a property for the text box. So under document type tag, declare a script tag. Now here under script tag, normally what we do is we write JavaScript code, but here we are writing C# code. So it has to be declared using runAt equal to server, so that the code is executed on the server, not on the client. Because JavaScript by default executes on the client, and we have not writing any JavaScript here, we are writing C# code. C# code cannot be executed on the browser, so it has to be executed on the server. We have to declare this code as runAt equal to server. Now to declare a property, declare the property as public. The property should return a text box. Give a name to the property TB. Now the property contains only get block. The property will return the text box. Here it is returning the ID of the text box. So the name of the property is TB. So using this TB, we can access this text box, okay, which is in the first page from the second page. Now save this. Now go to second page. Now we'll go to second page design mode. We'll add one more label here. Go to toolbox, add a label. So this is label 2. Go to format, position, absolute. Drag this here. So this is label 2. So we'll call this as the ID of the label is label 2, and the text is also label 2. Okay. Now let us go to the code main file of the second page. Now we'll access label 2 dot text. Now again we'll make use of previous page dot tb dot text, but unfortunately TB is not accessible because there is one more step that we need to do. Now we have to go to page 2. Okay. Now go to source mode. You have to declare one directive here called @previous page type, and the attribute is value virtual path. Here you are setting, okay, page 1 here. So you are creating a strongly typed property called previous page of type page 1. So when you do that, here we no longer have an error under TB. Previously, now let us try to remove this and see. Go to the code main file of page 2. Here we have an error here. You see an underline, red underline. This is because we have not declared any, okay, previous page type directive here. Now that the directive is declared and the path is mentioned for page 1, now when you go to page 2 in the code main file, there is no error for the TB property. Now save this. Now page 1 is set as startup page. You can do it once more. Set as startup page. Now go to debug. Select start without debug. So if we are in the page 1, let us type something hello. Just hello. Now we'll start with the first button. Now the button will cause a post back by default. The post back will take place just to itself, because this is the default behavior of the button. But for button 2, which is causing a cross page post back, when you click this button, so we have hello from the text box both in the label 1 and label 2. So we are in the page 2 here. you can also verify the URL. So this is how we can do a cross page post back.